was like so spread out.
Yeah, well, that's like their COVID sort of behavior. I like all that.
Shabbat shalom, everyone. Come on in, find a seat. All right, Maddox, you're in charge. Maddox, tell your family. Schmoozing later. Troublemakers. Hi, guys. So first of all, you all are challenging our leadership skills tonight because you are super spread out. But that's fine. And I will say, actually, tonight, we had so many people who told us that they were going to be watching from home. We've gotten so used to this lovely, warm weather that all of the people who are not ready yet to face the winter or the wet are at home. So for everyone who is watching at home and for everyone who is here, as spread apart as you are, we still say, Hinei ma tov u'ma how good it is to be able to be here together, near and far. And so we're going to sing those words, Hinei ma tov, which can be found on page 10. Hinei ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hinei ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hinei ma tov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hinei ma tov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hinei ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hinei ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. So tomorrow in our synagogue, we have the last bar mitzvah of 2021. So excited. You have to be like, yes, I'm so excited. All right, so Maddox Wolf has been waiting a very long time for this bar mitzvah because, like Lily, he postponed his for a year because of the pandemic, but he is ready. And so in honor of his bar mitzvah, we are going to call up actually a bunch of people all at once. We are going to call up Lauren and Bill Hackney, Jody and John Hostetter, and Stephanie Poger and Jeffrey Edwards, who are going to help us with our candle lighting and our kiddush. So come on up, all those people. Did you like just get in town? Welcome, here you go. Oh no, okay. All right, so we will invite you if you want to light our candles and then we'll say the blessing together. All right, so if you want to do the lighting and then we'll sing together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. And then if you want to lift our Kiddush cup, we'll say, yeah, go for it. It's not as heavy as the last. It's not as heavy as
it does look, yeah, I was like stuck, yeah. Stored in the sun.
It's fresh. Baruch atah Adonai
Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen.
You're welcome to take a drink if you want to. It's just right here. You don't have to. And then if someone wants to unwrap their challah, okay.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
So if you want, you can take a little bite. It's all yours. No one is going to eat it except for you. You can even take it to your seat. We won't give you a hard time for it. Beautiful. Well, this is so great. Thank you. So this week in our Torah, we finally conclude the story of Jacob, and there have been so many beautiful moments along Jacob's journey, but perhaps the one that's the most famous is the one that you can read about on page 25. This idea that Jacob falls asleep one night with his head on a rock for a pillow, and he sees this ladder going up to the heavens with angels coming up and down it. And so every time that we think of the story of Jacob, we remember too that there is such a thing as angels in our midst, and we welcome them into our homes, into our lives, with the words of Shalom Aleichem on 24. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Boachem L'Shalom, Malachei Ashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Baruch Hu Ni L'Shalom, Malachei Ashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Tzedchem L'Shalom, Malachei Ashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we rise together on page 28 for the call to worship. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach Baruch Adonai HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. At the top of 33.
As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery.
Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. We continue on page 34 with the words of the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Please be seated. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavacha hayom al levavecha v'shinatam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech u'shochbecha u'kumecha u'kshartam la'ot al yadecha v'hayu latotafot b'neinecha u'chtatam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. 39, standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there's a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there's no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. We ask God for freedom, but we remember every time we say Micha Mocha that even when you have freedom, that sometimes you just keep wandering and you are in need of God's protection with whatever that freedom has given you. And so we follow it with the words of Hashki Venu on page 42, asking God to spread a shelter of peace over us wherever we may go. Hashki Venu Adonai Eloheinu Shalom Shalom V'hamidenu Shomrenu L'chaim Ufros Aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha Ufros Aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha us from all harmful things. Oh, Adonai, keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. V'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Amen. We turn now to page 46, and I would invite you to rise for tefillah. Adonai, sefata tiftach ufi agita hilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu v'imoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, v'Konei Hakol, v'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, u'Mevii Geula livnei b'neihem, L'ma'an Shemo ba'ahava, Melech Ozer u'Moshia u'Magen. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham v'Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, B'chayei hakol atah Rav le'Hoshia. Mechakel chayim v'chesed, B'chayei hakol b'rachamim rabim, Somech noflim v'rofeh cholim, U'matir asurim, U'mekayem emunato lishenei afar. Mi chamocha ba'al gevurot, U'mido melech, Melech memit u'mechayeh, U'matzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah l'hachayot hakom. Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol. Please be seated. On page 61 at the bottom, it says, don't stop after beating the swords into plowshares. Don't stop. Go on beating and make musical instruments out of them. Whoever wants to make war again will have to turn them into plowshares first. We realize that peace, that shalom, is not easy to come by, but sometimes when we sing these words, it makes it feel like they're just a little bit closer. So on the top of page 60, we sing the words of Shalom Rav and hope that peace comes our way. Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim le'olam. Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim le'olam. Ki atahu melech adon, lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon, lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim le'olam. Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim le'olam. V'tov beinecha levarech et amcha Yisrael, bechol עת ובחורשה בשלומך. Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. So we know that tonight there are some who stayed home because of the rain and the cold, but we know that there are a lot of you who told us you're staying home tonight because you are ill, or because someone you love is ill and you want to be close with them. So we take a few moments to think of everyone in our community who is ill in mind or body or spirit. And if there's someone who you're thinking of who you know would appreciate their names being shared here, I would invite you to do so at this time. So we're thinking tonight of Leslie Wolf, we're thinking of Arlene Alper, of Lisi Weinstein and Jerry Krause. We're thinking of Aubrey McLean and Ella, of Kelly. We're thinking of Drew Patchen. We're thinking of Carolyn and Alice and Shelby, of Molly and Dan and Steve. For each of them and for each of the names we say in our hearts, on page 253, we join in the words of the Misha Berach, and we pray that healing comes their way. Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misha Berach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. Oh, say shalom b'mromav, u'ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oh, say shalom b'mromav, u'ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. So today was a not fun day to be a parent or to be in education. Now, if you aren't a parent or in education, you may not have heard about this, so I'll just tell you that that yesterday, really kind of last evening, cities really around the country and schools were informed that there was a TikTok challenge. And by the way, I just want to say that I really don't even know what TikTok is. I have one friend, Kathy Orvals, I'm talking to you, who sends me like adorable videos of goats wearing boots on TikTok, so that's what I know it's for. But apparently it's for other horrible things. And there was a TikTok challenge that today should be the day when you should go to your school and either try to blow it up or shoot someone. So parents all over the country spent last night and this morning trying to decide what to do with our children. And teachers had the same dilemma. And I'm sure every parent and every teacher decided something different for them. But I will say that I spent all day, we spent all day thinking about it. I'm sure many of you did. And not only trying to figure out, how to feel calm about what might have been happening in our children's schools, but just thinking about the world that we are giving our kids. And thinking about what it means to be passing this insane environment on to the next generation. And in many ways, honestly, it was a very synchronistic sort of way to be thinking in connection to this week's Torah portion. Because this week's Torah portion is all about the blessings that we give to our children and our grandchildren. Because in this week's Torah portion, this is the very end of the Jacob story, and Jacob has this opportunity to give blessings to his children and his grandchildren. Now, Maddox is going to tell you more about it tomorrow, and he's going to talk about the idea that the blessings that Jacob gives, they are sort of like a mix of blessings and then also kind of curses or really just disses. I mean, there's like a lot of insults in there, right? So Maddox will tell you that tomorrow. You can tune in if you want to hear more about that. But what I want to share with you tonight is not Jacob's blessings for his children, but is about Jacob's blessings for his grandchildren. Because he also gives blessings to Joseph's two sons, whose names are Ephraim and Manasseh. And after he blesses his grandsons, Ephraim and Manasseh, it says in the Torah, from this point forward in history, all Jewish boys will be blessed in the names of Ephraim and Manasseh. We're going to leave the girl part out of it for now, but this may seem familiar to you, especially if you watched services during that year and a half or so of the pandemic when it was just Rabbi Michael and I and our kids up here, because every single week the four of us would be up here, and because it was just us, every week we gave our children, and specifically our son, this blessing, may you be like Ephraim and Manasseh. But so the question is, why Ephraim and Manasseh? Right? Because the girls, when we bless girls, we bless them that they should be like Sarah and Rebecca and Rachel and Leah, because that makes sense. They're the matriarchs. They're like the big machers. But Ephraim and Manasseh, who's ever heard of those guys, right? So the question is, why don't we bless our sons and say, you should be like Moses, or you should be like Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, or even Noah? Why these random grandkids who no one's ever heard of? So, yes, I said grandkid, Lainey. Are you excited? So there's two really most famous traditions about why we say that you should bless your sons after Ephraim and Manasseh. The first one is that when you think about all of those other guys in the Torah, when you think about, let's think the very first two brothers, Cain and Abel. Remember what happens to those guys? It doesn't turn out well, right? Remember that? So Cain and Abel, the world's first brothers, also the first fratricide. So one of them kills the other one. And then if you keep going through the history, if you remember Noah and his sons, that didn't turn out very well either. And then you go on and you think about Abraham's sons, Isaac and Ishmael, also hated each other so much that the mom had to kick Ishmael out of the house. And then you get Jacob and Esau, who we've been talking about forever, also hated each other. Esau tried to kill Jacob, on and on and on. You have all of these brothers who just want to kill each other until you get to Ephraim and Manasseh. So the teaching says that may you be like Ephraim and Manasseh is a way of saying, may you finally be the kind of people who understand that within a family you have to find some way to make peace and to not fight amongst yourselves. That's teaching number one. Teaching number 2 has to do with sort of this strange scene of what happens when Jacob actually goes and blesses Ephraim and Manasseh. So it's this weird scene where Jacob goes, and remember, Joseph has been away in Egypt for a very, very long time, and finally he comes back, and he connects to Jacob again, and he shows Jacob his sons, and Jacob is so overwhelmed, and he says, I never even thought I'd see you again, and now I'm meeting your sons, and he gives them this beautiful blessing, and then like 2 paragraphs later, it happens again, and Jacob goes, who are these guys? And it's really sort of strange because like he just blessed them 2 paragraphs before, and all of a sudden it's like he doesn't remember. So it could be that, maybe he's a little bit famished, or it could really be that it was a mistake in the text, which is probably the real answer. But what the rabbis decided, they wrote a midrash about this, and they said, the reason that Jacob didn't recognize his grandsons was because they didn't look Jewish. They had been living in Egypt for so long. Their entire lives they had spent in Egypt. So they spoke Egyptian, and they walked like an Egyptian, and they looked in every way like Egyptians, and Jacob just didn't recognize them. But the thing about them was they were still Jewish. Even though they had these funky names, and even though they dressed like they were from Egypt, somehow they had retained their Jewish identity. So maybe we bless our children that they should be like Ephraim and Manasseh, to say that we know that all of us live in a country and in a world where it's not always easy to be around Jews all the time. That not all of us are always going to look Jewish. Not all of us are always going to talk Jewish or sound Jewish, but still there is this ability to say, no matter what you look like and no matter where you come from, if you were passed on this Jewish tradition, that you are still fully Jews. And so we bless our children that they should be like Ephraim and Manasseh, who knew what it was like to grow up in a place and a time where everyone wasn't Jewish, and still they turn out to be Jews. So those are the two most famous traditions, but I want to offer you just one more tonight. And this is the one that I was thinking about all day. So, you know what we know about Ephraim and Manasseh? Nothing. We don't know anything about them. We literally only know their names, Ephraim and Manasseh. We don't know anything about their past. We don't know anything about their future. There's literally nothing of their story that we know. And what if that's actually kind of an awesome thing? Because I was thinking of this idea of what are we giving our children? What is the world that we're giving them? Who will they grow up to be when they have to deal with this kind of mishigas, like a TikTok challenge? And I thought, you know what? Maybe that's not what we should be worrying about, because their story is unwritten. And just like Ephraim and Manasseh's story is totally unwritten, it was going to be their own. Ephraim and Manasseh were going to take the gifts that they had been given by their parents and by their grandparents and write their own story. And maybe that's the best thing that we can hope for our kids as well. That we can hope that we have given them the best teachings and the best life possible, but we cannot be the ones to protect them or make their choices or to write their stories. That just like Ephraim and Manasseh, their slates and their stories are clean, and they get to write every page for themselves. So tonight, even though this is a blessing that's mainly for boys, I wish that each of us should be like Ephraim and Manasseh. Then we should find that we are people who know what it means to not have conflict with the people we love. That we should find that we know what it means to be Jews, even if we are among people who are not our people. And that we should know that our stories and our children's stories are not yet written, and that is not a bad thing. Shabbat shalom, everyone. So I'm going to ask you now, if you will, to please rise, and we're going to turn to page 282 at the bottom for the words of the Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. 287, may we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding, loved each of us for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech, and may we never lift up our hand but to conquer fear and doubt and despair.
Rise up like the sun, Adonai, over all humanity, cause light to go forth over all the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with the joy of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace.
V'nema v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yehiyeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. So last night we had a program that we called Whiskey and Wisdom that was for interfaith couples, and we had a discussion about sort of what it's like to be in this time of year and to be interfaith, or even just to be in a community where you may be Jewish and it feels like you're the only ones. And it strikes me that even though Hanukkah is past, that this is still the holiday season. And while sometimes that can feel joyful for those who have experienced a loss at this time, it just makes this time of year so much harder. And so we take a few moments to recite the names of those, the anniversary of whose death occurs on this Shabbat, and whose names have been inscribed in the archives of our congregation or on the wall of honor for perpetual memorial. Earl Alexander, Anne Lawton Ehrenberg, Bertha Aronson, Julius Baer, Betty Roth Bernard, Alex Carafile, Florence Cohen, Joseph Cohen, Paul Cohen, Rose Engel, Henrietta Fish, Lizette B. Steiner Fisher, Bertha Landau Fried, David T. Friedman, Marshall M. Friedman, Rose Glazer, Etta Goldring, Mark E. Goodman, Nathan Grazeman, Rachel Scheuer-Haas, Manning Kalish, Harry Kingsbacker, Joseph Cohn, Sam Koppler, Louis Levy, Augusta Freund Littman, Irving Lundy, S. Farrell Miller, Anna Freund Morgan, Steve Morose, Evelyn Raff Nassauer, Maida Scheuer Sanger, Jack Schiller, Barney Ralph Schukart, Stanley Reese Schukat, Louis M. Schukar, Lena Shapiro, David Simon, Aaron Solomon, Alan Spetner, Donald Steele, Frederick Steele, Sherwin Bud Steinberg, Bella Steiner, Alfred Strauss, Rose Weinstein, Ulysses Weinstock, Erwin Victor Winston. With these names and the names we keep on our hearts, we turn together to the words of the Mourner's Kaddish on page 294. Yitkadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, ba'amad yivarach Ruteh v'yamlich Machoteh, b'chayachon uvyomechon uv'chayed d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv emru amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevarach la'alam u'mei amaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, Vitadar, Vitale, Vitalal, Shemei de Kudasha, Barichu, La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushbachata v'nechamata, Da'amiran ba'ama v'emru amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba min Shemaya, B'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'emru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, Ve'emru amen. May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. And together we say, Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Please be seated. So, we've sort of gotten away from having announcements on the Bima, which is actually, I think, sort of nice. But this is an evening that just needs a few announcements along the theme of interfaith, because we have so many of our staff who are Christian. We felt that it was very important to not have to ask them to come in on Christmas. So next week, which is Shabbat, but also Christmas, services will be virtual, and the same the following week on New Year's. So you are still more than welcome to tune in, either on Facebook or on the website, but don't come here because no one will be here. And for those of you who are celebrating those holidays, we hope that they bring you joy and comfort. And we want to remind you that we are still here and we will always return. So we sing, we return. We return, we return, we return, return again. We return, we return, we return, return again and again to you. To you, to you, we return again to you. All right, so before we say Shabbat Shalom, there's one more thing we have to do, but I'm going to ask you to stand up for this. So tomorrow, when Maddox reads his Torah portion, it is going to be the end of the book of Genesis, and it's a tradition that when you close a book, when you finish a book, that there's something we're all supposed to say, and it feels particularly meaningful this time of year. And so the words are chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek, which means essentially,
be strong, and you will be strengthened.
Beautiful. So what we're going to do is we will say it and you will repeat after us. Chazak. Chazak, v'nit chazek. Beautiful. May you find strength, and as we go into this new year, may you find joy, may you find health and happiness, and we will see you back in person in 2022. Shabbat shalom.
You guys got to come back tomorrow. Don't forget.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad. Well, I'm glad you were here. I was trying to remember how long it's been.
I'll tell her you said it. Cheer.
to get close there. Oh, be careful.